Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Be More. And for today's session, I am joined by Stephen Trumble, and we are talking about Be More Trailblazer community. Be More is a series of episodes which inspire you to be a little bit more of every role within the Salesforce ecosystem. So without further ado, Stephen, if I could bat it over to you to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, as Tom said, I'm Stephen Trumble. I work as a Salesforce consultant with Blue Engine Solutions in Washington, D.C., but I'm originally from Australia. So been living in America the last year and a half and be here for another year and a half, and then I'll move back. And yeah, like as Tom said, so I'm involved in the Trailblazer community. So yeah, in my spare time when I'm not doing my consulting work, then I try and answer questions and help people out so they can improve on their Salesforce journey.
Yeah, perfect. And it's awesome work you do. And I mean, I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. I do fangirl over some of your answers. Definitely like the flow formula ones. You're always on point and you definitely know what you're talking about, which certainly helps people too.
Thank you. Yeah, I was quite happy when I saw that because like I started doing this nearly 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago. And then at that time you were really answering a lot of questions. I know you still do, but at that time, you were one of the names I'd see over and over again. And yeah, I picked up so much from you over this time. And then so now it's kind of nice that now like I'm answering more complicated questions.
Yeah, today's episode is a little bit special because we're going off the traditional tracks. We're not talking about admins, developers, consultants here, even though that is what some of us do. We're pretending that we are the Trailblazer community because in a way we are. We definitely two of us here that spend a fair amount of our time answering people's questions and helping people. So maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on, I guess, what your role is on the Trailblazer community, perhaps as an answers leader. What do you see your responsibilities are and how do you help people?
When I go in the Trailblazer community, the people there, they're asking questions, and some of them are to do with badges, some of them are general kind of career advice, where should I go next? People are looking for app recommendations, or they might have a specific problem, in the production org they're working on. And then so I kind of see, my role is to try and help people out, give them advice, and, if I've seen something before, like point them in the right direction for a help article, especially when it's more to do with the Trailhead modules and things. I don't necessarily think my goal is to give them the answer, but it's more to point them in the right direction, because at the end of the day, you're not going to learn a lot just from copy pasting what I put in. So yeah, but if it's someone who's brand new, kind of these accidental admins, and then they're like really struggling and they're just like, oh, my boss needs this by the end of the day, then yeah, I'll give like a more detailed answer, and that's a little different.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and I agree. I try to take that role as well of kind of steering people in the right direction, especially when Trailhead is concerned, because if they copy and paste or verbatim follow what I say, they're not really going to learn from that. And potentially, if you do empower them with that information, they can then solve that problem again in the future without having to reach out, right? And potentially spread that knowledge too.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So yeah, as much as possible, we want people to be as independent and as confident and, build those skills. But yeah, if we can get people to be able to solve it themselves, then yeah, I think we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. We're empowering people with knowledge. Knowledge is power. Do you tend to specialize in a particular area? Because the community is quite broad, right? You would go from Marketing Cloud to Sales to Service to Experience Cloud to flows, formulas, Trailhead. Do you tend to kind of stick in a certain arena?
If we get like rewind a little bit, the reason I started all of this was because when I moved to America, I didn't yet have my legal working rights here. And so it took a few months until that could come through. And, I wanted to do something to keep my Salesforce skills up where I couldn't legally work. And with my visa, I couldn't volunteer at a Salesforce org or anything. And then so I was trying to find out, like, what can I do to be relevant, answer real life questions? And so I came in. And so at that point, I was just hungry for any problem. And it's like, more than likely to begin with, I was going to work in, a Sales Cloud or a Service Cloud spot, not too industry specific. So then I really focused on those arenas and looked for things there. And then when I wanted to build up my formula skills, then I'd, filter by formulas and just find out like what issues people are having there, try and rebuild it in my own dev org and give them the answer. When I wanted to build my flows, then I'd do it. Whereas kind of where I am now, I don't have like a real focus per se. I just kind of do what's interesting to me. And then, so that does happen to mostly be formulas and flows, Sales Cloud, nonprofit cloud.
have you potentially targeted an area or a question because it's something that you want to learn more about?
Yeah, so I guess with formulas, that's probably the main one. Why is the same question on, how to do what's a simple formula calculation in Salesforce being asked over and over and over again? And then I found there weren't that many Trailhead modules about it. There wasn't, I guess, a really easy way to navigate some of the help articles, because there is some good stuff, but it's kind of hidden in these PDFs. It can be a little bit hard to find.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. I think that's great. And is there anybody else in the community that kind of inspired you to do a little bit more as well? So any other kind of answers leaders or anything that you perhaps learned from indirectly too?
Yeah, well, I mean, not just saying this because you're here, but definitely, yeah, you are one of them, Tom. Like I said, you are got like a good way where you're answering questions, and you follow up with people, which isn't something I typically do, but I do kind of get these reminder emails. It must be your Saturday morning or something. And I wake up and Tom's like, "Oh, do you need any more help here?" So I think that's really good, where you've kind of got that extra level of caring. Whereas the way I kind of look at it, I'm already a volunteer. I'll give you one reply, and if you don't follow up, then that's okay. I don't take it. Steve Mollis is another really big one who stands out a lot. So many different great formulas. I've learned a heap from him, and just the way he solves these different problems. And I've been to a few of his talks, and he kind of self-describes himself as this university dropout, not the smartest guy, but if he can figure it out, then anyone can. And so he's a little bit self-deprecating, which I like. And and then so he's got all these great things where he's seen that problem or something similar 100 times before. And Jenna Wiener as well. She's really good with reporting in particular. She seems to have a really, really good grasp of that, and the way she can walk people through and rebuild stuff in her org is cool. Andrew Russell is there all the time as well. Seems to have really, really broad knowledge. It's really impressive kind of how many little things he's encountered.
No, and I think it's great kind of touching on people that help as well. And in particular, I think Steve Moe is a great kind of role model and an example of that, because it's somebody that's out there and kind of, I don't know if it's self-confessed or not, but I kind of always think of him as the king of formulas, right? And sometimes I get a little bit stuck with what people are trying to do, especially in report formulas. They're not my forte. I can do them to an extent, but sometimes I kind of defer, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna let Steve jump in here because I'm not sure what else to do. And also inspirational as well. I think he's got over 100,000 answers right now.
Yes.
In fact, I think the leaderboard struggles to keep his number in because it's so big. And also it proves what you can do without that kind of maybe educational background that everyone else has, and also without certifications as well, because certifications are important. But somebody like that's kind of king of formulas and is always active on the Trailblazer community, just has the one certification. Certifications don't equal experience. His experience is answering and helping people. Do you think that's a fair summary?
Yeah, I actually use him as an example in some of my the talks I give as well, because you're right. I think he's got 110 badges or something. I think he's just a ranger, just over that. And then he's a Dreamforce speaker who's done all these things, and there's so many architects and whatnot. Steve's the person you should talk to here. Where he's built up this entire reputation, and he doesn't need he doesn't need however many certs behind his name to have this reputation. So it's very kind of refreshing to see that as well. And it's just this different way of gaining the experience. So the other one, sorry, I forgot to mention Eric Proud, but he's also coming up with a heap of good formulas and things as well.
He's actually corrected at least one of my formula posts. So
likewise.
So he taught me stuff, and that's inspiring, really, because not anybody can know everything. We're still learning, and ultimately we're human beings, right? We sometimes need to ask questions ourselves or be corrected by somebody to know that we're doing it wrong. So I really appreciate him for doing that. I think it was the old is blank versus is null, and he reminded me that one of those features had been depreciated.
Which one, Tom?
I'm gonna say is null.
Correct. Yeah. And this does get a little bit confusing. because is null is, one of those default operators when you're building a flow. And so,
Yeah.
your entrance criteria, people use is null there. And then so you kind of can get in this habit. But yeah, for formulas, just use is blank.
Like myself and Eric, I think we're both based in Europe. You're in America. There are some other kind of in Australia and Japan as well. It's definitely a worldwide thing.
Kaiji Hotsuper, I think, is in
Yes.
Japan. Yeah.
How often, regularly, do you help out people on the Trailblazer community? Like, how do you work it into your day if that is a daily routine? Like, how do you ensure that your day job gets done, and also you potentially can help some people as well?
Normally kind of over breakfast, I'll be having a bit of a look there, doing something. And then, yeah, normally I'll try and spend like a little bit of time when I finish my job, kind of in that like 5 to 6 period. I'll have a look there as well. Yeah, when I couldn't work, a year and a half ago, then I was literally on there hours and hours a day because I was just, hungry to learn as much as I could then. Salesforce was still so new, but now that, landed a job, obviously that takes priority there.
From my own point of view, I have those bursts as well. In the morning when I'm getting ready, making my breakfast, whatever, I'll answer a couple of questions. And you can tell, I guess, a little hack for people if they're studying my questions, what time of day I'm answering them by how badly constructed they are. Because sometimes they use voice typing.
Oh, really?
The voice typing is not great at picking up some of the Salesforce words. So it will correct it to something else, and sometimes I won't notice, but usually the people get the gist. And then another little way I find, I'm in the office a couple of times a week. I do it on the train, and on the train I'm just sat there, in that case, like on my phone, answering questions, and a little bit like you, have a burst in the evening as well.
I'm in the office twice a week as well. So normally I cycle in, but yeah, if I do take the metro, take the train, then yeah, I use that time as well. And because not much else to do when you're just sitting or standing on the train for like 20 minutes. So answer a few questions. Yeah.
Using your brain a little bit more and learning some new stuff maybe too.
That's it. Yeah. Learn so much. Then as well, because I think like especially early on, like the way I'd see you, because often the way to answer a question is by asking more questions. And because some people, they don't give a very descriptive problem. They're like, oh, I'm facing an error. Like, that could be any one of 1,000 things. And then, just what's the first follow-up question, second follow-up question. And then, like people like you, people like Steve Mo, whatnot, then sometimes just like I've kind of started emulating and copying that and realizing, oh, this is like what the question is at the first layer, second layer, third layer, fourth layer, fifth layer, until you really find the root of their issue. And it's like, actually, like, you don't want a formula field at all. Like, we need a complete whole, record triggered flow for this, because this won't meet your thing. So yeah, I've learned, come into play with my consulting a lot, just being able to get to that real deeper level. Like, what is the actual problem which we need to solve, and how do we find it?
Definitely, I guess the consultant in me kind of thinks, okay, let's take a step back. And sometimes I do say it as well. Let's step away from the solution and actually, what do you want to solve here?
Yeah, find the business requirement.
Yeah, exactly. What's your business process? What do you need us to do here? So I think that's great, solid advice there, because I certainly relate to it too. So if you were starting your Trailblazer community journey again and starting answering questions from refresh or from scratch, what tips, advice would you give to those looking to start out? Is it just dive straight in, try to help? Is there any pointers?
Yeah, so I think, I know when you're first starting, like just getting the hang of it, kind of seeing how the platform works, it's good to focus more on the trailhead specific things, because that's probably where you're going to have more experience. But then, if you're trying to do this like I did, to build actual experience and try and land a job out of it, then you can't keep just relying on helping with badges. And so that's when you got to, kind of change the filters and start finding people working in real orgs, and then what's the real issue they're having, and then how did you solve that? And then, that's when you can blog about it, or, have it in your memory bank for when you're having the interviews. I helped this nonprofit, they're having this reporting issue, they're having this data import issue. And, then I looked into how to use the NPSB data import, and then I learned about, how you can put like multiple household members in at once, and then I could talk them through that, and then you've got something like actually to work on.
Yeah, and I mean, just picking on that example a little bit, but I know that there's a great trailhead badge for that too.
You can do that, and then maybe you can try and explain in a way if they didn't quite understand how the module was explained to them, or even you could just share the link with them, because sometimes people, if you don't know this exists, you'll never know to search for it. You'll be
Yeah,
stuck
exactly.
looking at the regular data import wizard or data loader or something. It's like, oh, actually, NPSP is a little bit special. It's got its own tool.
If you were to start out in this role again as a member of the Trailblazer community, is there anything you change or do differently?
I don't know. I think it's worked quite well for me, honestly. Yeah, I don't think I'd change a lot, to be honest. I think I've learned a lot. Maybe I would have started using the filters a little bit sooner to get really product specific, especially when I was like sitting my sales cloud exam or my service cloud exam, because then it's just a different way. Because like obviously the trails are good. There's practice tests, like focus and force things you can do. There's like blogs you can read, but sometimes it is nice, like, oh, let's find like an actual service cloud user who's having an issue, and then dive into the back end of my dev org and then figure out like what would I have to do to meet this requirement. And maybe it'll come up on the test, maybe it won't, but at least if you have that with a real client down the line, then you've seen the problem before. So
yeah, no, that's great. And like until you've dived into like entitlements, milestones, you might understand the theory of it in Service Cloud, but you wouldn't necessarily understand how do I automatically close off milestones for something, because I see that comes up quite a lot, that type of question. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely value there. And I think for me, my one would be, and I try to remember to say this now, I'm human, I do forget sometimes, remind people to test in a sandbox is definitely my one, because I've been guilty of saying to someone, oh, let's try this, and they've tried it in production, and then they've broken something, and I'm like, you shouldn't have done that, because I just assume. But not everybody is obviously at the same level. Some people are just starting out, some people are super experienced with more years of experience than I have. Awesome. So what skills, attributes does it take to be a member of the Trailblazer community? It's just willing to help, support, and learn, I guess. Those are the main ones. Do you have any more?
Yeah, well, I think, just being inquisitive. So, and then, just wanting to know, okay, because like, obviously there's some questions which are very, very basic. They've built 90% of the formula. It's a little syntax error. It's like, okay, you're missing an underscore. Something that's fine. But then there are other ones where it's, you do, like we spoke about, like those different layers where you need to go, you need to ask like over and over again, like, what are we actually doing here? Like, why'd you give me this solution when like I don't know what your requirement is yet? We might be off on the wrong path. So yeah, just someone who can ask a lot of questions and then think about different ways to potentially solve it. Because in Salesforce, like there's always more than one way to resolve the issue.
If there was a myth or a stereotype of somebody that's an active member of the Trailblazer community that you'd like to debunk or demist, does anything come to mind there?
Oh, I think that, you need a job, or you need to be like experienced to do it. You need to have all these certs and things. Because when I was starting out, like I hadn't worked in a production org yet. I was still hunting for my first job. And then before I even landed a job, I got featured like by Barbin from the Salesforce team. Like I was, featured in the Trailhead newsletter and things. So yeah, this was a person with zero experience. I had a few certs at that point, but no like real world, real life things. So definitely don't need to wait till you have a job. You don't need to have all these certifications behind you. You can start straight away. Because like I said before, if you've been doing this for a month, you're ahead of everyone who's been doing it for a week. If you've been studying for 3 months, then ahead of everyone who's only been studying for a month. So there'll be someone who you're ahead in the journey with.
Yeah, exactly. And you're proudly wearing your Court Being Awesome t-shirt today for us. So definitely a testament of your hard work there, I think. I think for me, it does frustrate me a little bit, because there is always some comeback to this. But believe it or not, I don't get a personal kick out of telling people to not ask about super badges.
Yeah, so I guess if you are having issues with super badges, all the information, all the guidance will be in the super badge itself, going through there. And then so there's help articles on this. And then, if you really do think there is a bug or there's something funky going on with your dev org, you need to raise a case with like the Trailhead team, not ask the question there in Trailhead community, because you're potentially putting someone in an awkward position where, if they gave you help, it might land them in strife. So just simplest, go through the official channels.
Super badges are credentials. We cannot give answers to exams, so we cannot give answers to super badges either. And I think that's really important to know, because, as I say, it's kind of a little bit of a shift from what Salesforce used to do historically. They used to allow it, and that's changed over recent years. So that's definitely some great advice there. So if people were looking to connect with you and perhaps any of your content or courses and things like that you've mentioned, how is best for them to reach out and to connect with you? Like, where can they find you online, type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm only really active on LinkedIn, so there's not too many Stephen Trumbles, but Stephen with a V for Victor. So yeah, you can follow me there, and then I post every now and then about formulas, flows, or just interesting things I find in Salesforce. If I do something silly and I think, oh, maybe someone else might do this, might fall on the same track, then I kind of just post about what I did and how I fixed it afterwards. So that'll be the main thing. And then if you are struggling with formulas, I've got a course in Udemy, and so there's like a link in my LinkedIn profile, but it's just called Learn Salesforce Formulas. So nice and creative name there.
Yeah, and I think that's great. Like, personally, when I started off as an admin, I don't think I've shared this with anybody ever, actually, but I always used to struggle with formulas. They were very difficult for me to kind of comprehend, and in particular validation rules, because it's almost like a reverse formula. So I'm afraid we're having to bring today's session to an end. So I just wanted to say thanks again for joining me, for giving me your time and talking about your role. And hopefully, maybe we can inspire people to be more Trailblazer community and get stuck in and help others with their Salesforce related questions too. So thanks for that. Thanks for tuning in to Be More with Tom Bassett. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave any feedback in the comments.